the contrast between a job in an industry and an academia is that in an academic setting, you're your own boss. I mean, the laboratory is like your laboratory. It's like a small startup that you have. So you build that lab, you decide what problems you want to work on with the students, and how to work on it, when to stop, how to direct the problem. Everything is under your control, and there's nobody telling you what you should do. So that is the luxury of an academic life, as opposed to an industry where you have to tailor your research to match with the industry interest.
Welcome viewers to my next episode on GCRISH TV. As you are aware, KVIIT IIT Chennai, the Alumni Association, which is celebrating the 40th year, is conducting a series of podcast interviews. So far, we uploaded 7 podcast interview and another exclusive interview in the campus with R.N. Sendil Kumar, the current principal of KVIIT IIT Chennai. Today, rather part 8 episode, we have the pleasure of inviting Dr. S. Ramakrishnan from Bangalore.
Good evening.
Welcome, Dr. S. Ramakrishnan. I think it's a busy schedule for you as you are still associated with a very important organization. Now, sir, to begin the interview, you are from the 1977 batch. So I wish you recall your younger days. And also I saw from the profile you sent, biodata you sent, your journey to Mumbai University, then to US. You did your PhD and you came back to Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, a leading research education institution in India. So briefly mention for the benefit of viewers, especially the younger generation.
Thank you very much for having me in this podcast. It's really a pleasure to reflect on the role of our school in the careers that we've built. So as many of my classmates and myself have often discussed, the memories of school, especially KV inside IIT, is very fresh in our minds. We often recollect the wonderful teachers that we've had, the excellent facilities that were provided to us both academically as well as for sports. I think the overall impression that most of us carry about our school is extremely wonderful. We had very committed teachers, many of whom probably shaped the way we developed in our future careers. I spent maybe over 7 years in KV-IIT. Prior to that, I was in KV-CLRI until 5th standard, and after that, we moved to KV-IIT. And my memories of the school is the comprehensive way in which they taught everything. You sort of groomed the personality that we are today. Post finishing KV, and we had our class, the 77 batch was particularly, I think we had some stellar students. We had many excellent students. I mean, I think we had a class of 44 in the science section. As you recall, we were the last batch of the 8+3, which means we had 3 years of, and we completed at 11th standard. The next batch was 10+12, 10+2, as 12. So in our batch, we had 44 students in the science stream and 46 students in the science stream and 40 boys and 6 girls. So it was very heavily male dominated, at least the class was. And out of our class, maybe over 10 of them actually joined IIT, many of them at IIT Madras and other IITs across the country. And many of us went into who did not make it to IIT went to other streams, and I was one of them who chose to do chemistry in Bombay. And the reason I shifted from Chennai to Bombay was my father, who used to work in CLRI, had moved, had finished his 20-year and took a voluntary retirement and left to Bombay to join a company. So I had to move. So the last year uh, I spent in the hostel. So I was also I had the pleasure of staying very close to the school in my final year. So 76 to 77, I stayed in the hostel. I understand the hostel is no more now. It is now the KV Sangathan office. So hostel was a particularly joyful experience for us. I mean, that made our life a little more complete. We had the freedom, we explored the freedom, and rejoiced in the freedom. So that was nice. And so I went to Bombay to do my BSc at the University of Bombay. And after my BSc, I was fortunate to get admission into IIT Bombay for a master's program, and I completed my MSc at IIT Bombay. And that is when I really decided IIT Bombay probably shaped my desire to be in research. You know, the kind of exposure that I had at IIT Bombay um, strengthened my resolve to do a PhD. And so it took me to the US. I did my PhD at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. I completed my PhD, after which I joined a company called Exxon, which is a big oil company. They had a corporate research center in New Jersey, where I spent 2 years as a postdoctoral fellow. Post which, as you mentioned, I returned to India, and I was fortunate to get a position at the Indian Institute of Science. And the subject I enjoyed learning and continue to enjoy still is chemistry. And I'm trained as a polymer chemist, so I deal with polymers, all kinds of plastics, and the chemistry of polymers. That's the background.
Now, please tell me, sir, you went in the early 80s to US,
I left in 1982, yes.
1982. What was the procedure of admission at the time for overseas
Uh,
masters
Of
in
course,
US?
those were days
Briefly.
when pre-internet days.
Ah,
So we have to send out applications by post, and the cost, of course, our affordability of the average Indian middle class was much lesser than it is today in general. So we would apply to maybe half a dozen, maybe 6 to 8 schools, select schools, very often based on the admission fee. Not the admission fee, application fee. So the application fees in some schools were very high, so we would leave out those, would sort of take a balance between the quality of the school and the application fee and so on. And some of them would waive the application fee, so that would be rated high in our list of places to apply. And of course, those days there is no point in an admission without financial support. So those would be clearly indicated in our application or the letter, saying that if admission without financial aid is of no use to us, because we simply cannot afford. So we would send out applications by post, and we would await receiving the letter, the which we used to call the love letter affectionately, when you get an admission. So um, it was different days. Today everything is much faster. You have online interviews and so on. There it was primarily based on the letters of recommendation, your performance, and of course we all had to take GRE, both basic and advanced. So we took all those. Based on all those scores, we received admissions. So I was lucky to get admission in a few places. In fact, I first went to University of Minnesota at Minneapolis, but I wanted to be a polymer chemist, and somehow in my MSc itself, I had gravitated towards that field. And in Minneapolis, although the school was very good, chemistry school, they did not have a very strong polymer presence. So I moved to UMass because they had a school of polymers, and this polymers activity in UMass was very strong. So I moved after 3 months. I moved to UMass in January of in 1983, and in 5 years' time, I completed. 88, I completed. 88, I joined Exxon, spent 2 years there, and returned. So the process was that. And of course, the letters of recommendation were very important. And those days, I think both the training and the research kind of background that was given at IITs were good. So I think IITs stood a better chance. Students from IITs stood a better chance to secure admission those days. Although admission in other places were also there, but today that has become a leveler because now you get admission everywhere, and all many schools in India are well known. And of course, the quality of Indian mind in students is now much better understood by people across the world. So admissions and has become a lot easier. Fellowships are not so easy to get these days, but admissions have become a lot easier.
Okay. Not, it was a major decision, isn't it, to come back and to join IIS, Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore? What
Yes,
made
it
you to
was
come
an
back?
absolutely. Yeah, those were days when I think the number of people choosing to come back were not very large. A larger fraction chose to stay there for good reasons. I mean, because the place offers a lot more opportunities and so on. So I thoroughly enjoyed my stay in the US, and I did not return because I did not like the US. In fact, I liked it very much. Very often I'm asked this question. When I left the country, at that time itself, my intention was to return. I never changed. So I recall it was stressful because even those days, not everybody who secured admission and financial aid was getting visa. They used to reject several cases, and the basis for rejection very often is that they're not convinced you'll return. So I recall the conversation I had with the counselor at the embassy, and the counselor asked me, what makes you feel after finishing a PhD, why do you think you would not stay back in the US? And those were days when television was not as prevalent. All you knew about the US, etc., were through Hollywood movies. So that's what you knew about the US, right? So I actually told the counselor very honestly, I said, look, I don't know enough about the US, and my sense that I get is that we are culturally very different, and I'm not very sure that I would really fit into the culture in the US. This was the honest answer that I gave the counselor, and I think it was probably a very unusual answer to have listened to, where you reflect more on the cultural fit rather than anything else. So I was given the visa, fortunately. So yeah, but that was my intent. My intent was always to return, so it never changed. And even when I was in the US, I had offers. Even in the company Exxon, they were willing to stay back. I said no. And I think the easiest way, when a lot of fellow Indian friends who asked you, why are you going back? Or even others, because it was uncommon to go back. My answer would be, after some time, explaining would never help. So I would simply say, I'm going home. And then the conversation would stop because nobody will ask why you're going home. So yeah. So it was just a conviction that I always had to come back. Yeah.
Okay. I have a question in that. See, you are working in in a commercial organization in US, isn't it? And when
That
you
is
came
correct.
back, you didn't join any what do you call it, industry or chemical industry, or whereas you joined a research education like Indian Institute of Science Education, Bangalore.
Correct.
That is another
So
different approach for you, isn't it?
yeah, the reason is, of course, I probably did not elaborate. It was not a regular company job. I was in what is called a corporate research center. It was the corporate research center of Exxon Research and Engineering Company. It was actually well known to explore all of science. I mean, there were 100 scientists there, and they had 40 postdoctoral fellows, which is a very unusual ratio. Postdoctoral fellows are basically not employees, not regular employees, but they continue doing research under the guidance of one of the researchers, permanent researchers there. So it was an environment that was fostering fundamental questions in science. And so even though it was an industry, which gave me an exposure to how industries function, the work was very fundamental, and I could publish papers and so on. So it was very much like an academic environment. So Although, to be honest, I had applied both to industry as well as academia while returning to India because I had no guarantee that I would get a job somewhere, right? So I'd applied to National Chemical Laboratory, I'd applied to IISc, applied to some IITs as well, and I'd applied to some companies which were doing research those days. ICI was one of them in Bombay. So yeah, so I was not averse to the idea of getting into a company, but my first preference would have been academia. And of course, IISc, clearly I'd never visited IISc before that, even though it was in the south. The first time I visited was when I joined. So, but I had a roommate in Amherst who was a PhD from IISc, and he had given me really glorious an impression about IISc, and he said if you get IISc, don't even think about anything else, just go. So I took his advice, and I have no regrets because I think it's one of the best places I could have returned to. And Bangalore was a wonderful city then. Continues to be nice, but not as nice as it used to be in
Okay.
the
Now
90s.
here, how is your career growth? Rather, you are still in service. I heard from you. So 1990 to 2025. Briefly mention about your rather, I do not know whether official academic career in IISc or you can
Yeah,
briefly mention.
yeah. So, well, academic careers are always such a pleasure simply because you're in constant touch with young people. You're teaching young people, you're engaging in research. So, as a professor at IISc, our job is primarily both to teach as well as to conduct research. When I say conduct research, what you do is we guide PhD students. So, all of us, typically, each laboratory will have maybe 6 to 10 PhD students. So they would all be trying to solve some problem. They would all pick up a research problem, and our role is primarily to guide them on how to solve those research problems. In the process, we would publish some papers which get read by others in journals. And so, a researcher typically is engaged in investigating new processes or new phenomena, or developing new methods, and so on. So, as a chemist, as a polymer chemist, our interest was largely in the area of polymers. As you know, plastics are basically made out of very long molecules, and we were fundamentally asking questions about polymeric systems. New polymeric new class of systems had become uh, available in the 1990s called highly branched structures, like trees, as opposed to long structures. So we spent a long time trying and understanding various aspects of those unusually architectured polymeric systems. And we worked on several different types. I have roughly 30 PhD students have graduated from my lab. So, and I've had the pleasure of teaching at IISc for the last 35 years. So it's a very unusual kind of role. The contrast between a job in an industry and an academia is that in an academic setting, you're your own boss. I mean, the laboratory is like your laboratory. It's like a small startup that you have. So you build that lab, you decide what problems you want to work on with the students, and how to work on it, when to stop, how to direct the problem. Everything is under your control, and there's nobody telling you what you should do. So that is the luxury of an academic life, as opposed to an industry where you have to tailor your research to match with the industry interest.
So you must have submitted so many thesis papers. We say
Yeah,
here that you are a PhD, but you must have got so many PhDs in this period of 1990 to 2025.
yeah. Roughly about 30 PhD students. So 30
Okay,
students graduated with their PhDs. Yeah,
okay. So you will be guiding so many younger generation also who want
that
to
is
do
correct.
this polymer, isn't it?
Correct,
Still.
correct, correct,
Okay.
correct,
I
correct.
think with your permission, I'll
Yes,
give you your Gmail ID or my contact mail ID. Whoever is interested in this field can contact
sure.
you. In the description
No
box,
problem.
I'll give you. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sir, any other message you like to give to the younger generation? because yours is a very specialized industry, and polymer chemistry is in high demand always, isn't it?
That is correct. Yeah. I mean, some years ago there was this science sabha in Chennai. It's conducted by the Central Math Science Institute for Math Science. So I was there actually giving a lecture on polymers, and so yeah, it is something that today plastics are something that is looked at very negatively. It's a huge problem of
True.
environmental.
Yeah.
So I think I gave a lecture on that, and that is available on the link at in this. And I think that gives you a feeling for the context in which polymers are being studied today. No question that it has changed the way we are living. And it's an irreversible step that we've taken of utilizing polymers to improve our life. I don't think we can retract, but we need to learn how to manage the polymer waste that we're generating and have generated. So we have to be creative. And chemists have to work with engineers to create solutions to these problems that we've generated. But in terms of advice to younger students, young students today are facing a lot more uncertainty about their future than we had. When we were finishing high school or finishing college, there was a certain certainty about what you might expect from life. Although we didn't expect very much, you can get in many, many, many questions. So, so knowing is no longer the important thing. It is what to know and how to utilize what you know is far more important than knowing itself. There was, when we were in school or finishing up, it was the importance was on knowing. We have to know things. Today, you can find out answers with almost no difficulty. So, youngsters need to train to ask the right questions. Knowing is also important because it is only by knowing that you know what questions to ask. It is not knowing of details, but knowing in a very broad sense. So, my advice to youngsters is only to learn as much as you can at your own pace. Take it on your own pace. Today, it's possible to learn with so many online, courses and online resources. So, my advice would be one is to learn as much as you can when you have the freedom to learn. Two is to be very adaptable. That means you don't fixate yourself on one direction. Be flexible and be adaptable. Be willing to learn new things. And today, I suspect that the boundaries between disciplines are easily breakable. It's possible to move from one discipline to another, especially with the amount of resources available. So I think one has to be the innovativeness of the human experience comes from having broad knowledge base and being able to ask the right questions and being able to evaluate answers that you're getting from, let's say, AI, ML sources and question deeper. And so I think the interaction with resources are going to be key in the way you develop. I think and entrepreneurship is getting very hot, and I think that's also very important. Today, I think youngsters need to be open to the idea of being an entrepreneur. I was not like that when we were there. There were very few people who ventured into starting their own. But today, that has become much more the way of and the direction of thinking. It will not only help you, but it will also help the nation create more jobs. I think that's an important direction. So I think youngsters are much more bold today. They are much well informed, no question. Their knowledge levels, or for those who are interested in pushing learning, their knowledge is amazing today. So they're really while uncertainty is there, but they're much more, I think, adaptable, much smarter, much greater exposure because of the way things have changed. Yeah, that would be broadly my advice. I don't know if it's too long, but I think be adaptable, be eager to learn, and don't ask questions as to what use would it be if I learn this. Just learn. If it's there to be learned, learn it. And I think what will come in handy at what time is unpredictable today.
That was Dr. S. Ramakrishnan, who has given valuable inputs to G. Christie viewers. On behalf of the Alumni Association of Kendriya Vidyalaya IIT Chennai, on behalf of me, I say thank you, Dr. S. Ramakrishnan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was a very useful advice given finally, that it's not only knowing, but you should be smart enough. Rather, your smart learning is more required in the current days. So thank you. And as said earlier, I'll give your contact Gmail link. Those who are interested in this field can approach you. So thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you very much.